but I'm not sure how much everyone else knows about Episcopal Relief and Development and what it stands for. And so I will just share a couple of notes on the history of it and then give you a brief update on what's going on now and what the primary focus has been and will be through the rest of this year. So for those of you who don't know, Episcopal Relief and Development is the Episcopal Church national outreach throughout the world, not just in America, but for over 75 years. The focus has been working towards supporting partners for lasting change around the world as it relates to the development for healthier, more fulfilling lives for more than 3 million people struggling with hunger, poverty, diseases, and disasters. And it was inspired by Jesus's words in Matthew 25. And Episcopal Relief leverages the expertise and resources of Anglican and other partners to deliver and offer partners opportunities to change in 3 programs internationally now. And those 3 focuses are women, children, and climate. This change occurred in 2016, where the focus changed to from the previous years are just disasters and around the world providing resources to alleviate poverty. Most of you might remember the Nets for Life program that they undertook years ago and met that goal. During that time after that, Episcopal Relief and Development became a 501c3. It stands on its own now. It is not, it has always stood on its own, I should say. And I don't know if any of you remember, the previous name was the Presiding Bishops Fund for Relief years ago. And one of the things that I want to say right here, you don't really have to take that many notes. What I suggest is that you go to episcopalrelief.org. Everything I'm saying is on that website, and it's very easy to navigate. All of your frequently asked questions are there, and if the answer isn't there and something you need, you can always contact me, and I will put the website in the chat. So what I want to share is to let you know that most of the focus in this last year has been on the pandemic and a lot of resources, and also the weather related activities in Florida, throughout the United States, starting with Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Louisiana, and beyond. And that also includes Mississippi. A lot of the work and focus of the monies that they've asked for urgent dollars is to respond to those who have lost power and water in the southern states. They continue. I don't know if you understand how Episcopal Relief and Development works throughout the country. We don't go in and just do things. They're always connected with the Episcopal diocese in whatever state they work. We always coordinate with partners. Nothing is done independently. It is always based on requests that ask for the help. Episcopal Relief and Development does not waste any dollars. They spend 90 cents out of every dollar on the programs that you donate. The expenses for administratively is picked up by the offices in New York, which include processing for any donations that come in. They get tons of in-kind donation for housing and all of that they have to house their employees. So none of the monies are spent in that way. But the focus right now has been to change what they have been doing in the past, but to really go back and look at 3 main focuses of. One of them is a 1,000 Days of Love, which is a $3 million grassroots church or funded program campaign that they're hoping to expand and improve the lives of children up to the age of 6. So that's one of the necessary programs that they're working on. What also is important to note is that everything has sort of been on hold now because of the pandemic. So most of those focuses in other countries have been to support their needs as part of what's going on as based on COVID. And in most of you might not know, most of the action and the work that's done is in Africa, Asia, and the Pacific, Latin American and Caribbean countries, and the United States. Most of the work done in the United States is related to disasters. They don't do any other, just focus on any disaster that happens in any part of the country. Episcopal Relief and Development is normally the first outreach to those needs in any, and they're the last to leave. So you can always believe when someone asks, where do Episcopalians support any type of disaster, you can always say Episcopal Relief and Development. And you can be assured to send them to the website and they will get the most current information. Nothing is transparent, and anything you need to know is available to you. So I'm not sure how much more other than to suggest that if you're having funds that you want to provide to an outreach, I would recommend Episcopal Relief and Development as one of the ones that you support in meeting the needs of not just locally, but throughout the country, the world. But there are a couple of activities going on right now that you can take part in. It's the Lenten Meditation that's going on. And you can always connect from our diocese webpage. There is a connection to take you directly to the website. And you can sign up for that through episcopalrelief.org. The other one is to have a Sunday dedicated to Episcopal Relief and Development. They normally ask that you pick the first Sunday in Lent, but that depends on what your activities are and how you see that, but to contribute those funds to the cause of meeting the needs of others. So I'm not sure how much more, and I can answer any questions as we go if someone has any.
The Lenten Devotional is amazing. It always is, and this year is no exception. It's really great. It was one of the materials, if for those who were at Peace, Love, and Lent, which I think is everybody here. It was in the Lenten envelope package of materials. Yeah, and it's also online, as you said.
Yes, it is, and you can receive an email every day with the updates, and you can meditate on your own. And so it's not like overwhelming. It's a one-time commitment to the Lenten time for that information. But I think the most important part right now has been the focus of meeting those needs from all of the problems with power and water in Texas and that has been the focus of what Episcopal Relief has been asking people to donate toward. But if you want to donate, one of the most important recommendations is that you don't designate, then they use the money at the most important cause at that time. If you designate it, that money will go to whatever you're designating it to be used for. That does not change. But they ask that most of the funds, if possible, other than one, if you're having a special fundraiser, say for COVID, to support that, that's different. But overall, if you're going to put it as part of your outreach, that it be undesignated so that it will be used in the most efficient way.
Thank you very much, Juanita. That's given us some nice thoughts about things. And I guess I didn't even realize how much Episcopal Relief and Development works with organizations. I knew they worked with dioceses, but I assume that that's the same type of thing that they do then. You mentioned Africa, Central America. They're working with existing organizations then? And just
Anglican, in the Anglican community.
Okay.
Yes.
Does anybody else have questions or thoughts that you would like to? I think we're very, very blessed to have Juanita here today. So take advantage, ask your questions, man.
I'm going to put the website in the chat And I'll put my email address too.
Great. That's great. Any thoughts or comments anybody has?
It's just so great to see Juanita. She's always been so connected and so faithful to the church and all the outreach that we've done as a diocese. It's great. It's great to reconnect with you, Juanita. Thank you.
It's good to see you. I missed you.
I miss you.
Yes, long time. We go way back when you were always so delighted to just do all that. Made me feel good all the time. So it's always great to see you, Denise.
Yes.
Juanita, I know this is the age of pandemic, but does Episcopal Relief and Development look for volunteers to help with their work?
No, not, they're more focused now on not having to coordinate volunteers. They usually use local people to do most of the work and use their volunteers. And over the several years now, unless they're planning a trip internationally or they look for specific projects, they're not doing that in the last maybe 10 or 15 years.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody know historically from like, I guess I need to kind of look back at vestry notes, but has there been, I'm thinking back the turn of quite a while ago when we devoted a certain percentage of outreach towards, for example, the Millennial Development Goals.
Mm-hmm.
Has there ever been a designation for Episcopal Relief and Development, or was it, does anybody, I don't know that in terms of Christ Church? That might be something interesting to look into. Seth would be able to answer this question. I'm sorry, Seth's not here. He'd say, well, we did the Millennial Development Goals and we did, but it was nice for Millennial Development Goals because money that came in, there was a certain percentage that was part of our budget, really, that went towards some of those really important international goals to help mothers and children. And so I just wasn't sure if Episcopal Relief and Development, I'll have to, we'll follow up with that with Seth to see.
I think it would be important for us to see the history of our commitment at Christ Church to the Episcopal Relief, to see where we've been, and great suggestion, Eileen. Thank you.
Okay, good.
And I think that one of the most important things that I think we all should remember, this is we don't get the publicity that others, the Red Cross and all of those areas get, but Episcopal Relief has been around over 80 years now and supporting throughout the world in meeting the needs of the underprivileged. And as I said before, I mean, we stay there when the others leave. Their commitment is not short term. It's for the long haul where any need. And if you all recall the issue in New Orleans when we had all of those issues, I mean, we raised a ton of money, and also for Haiti and all of those things. And Michiganders are really good. Episcopalians in Michigan have always contributed. So on an individual basis, a lot of the work that we try and do now, other than sending overwhelming information, it is to talk to groups like you and to get people committed that way, and then have the opportunity to share and have during your Christian formation time, use some of the resources from the website to just do some education and get people to start to looking to understanding what our church is doing throughout the world. And I think that's the most important part that I like to share versus just saying send some money, because people make their choices that way. You can make it as a congregation, but then we hope that individuals will also commit to the work that's being done by Episcopal Relief and Development. And we gave up the ERD, the letters ERD. We have to say Episcopal Relief and Development because most people do not know what ERD stands for. So we're trying really hard. So any materials that you put out, please, for me, say Episcopal Relief and Development throughout your documents. And there is a new tagline out there. So if you go to the website and you can download the tagline that's out there now. It's brand new. We adopted it a couple of years ago, and it's called Working Together for Lasting Change. So I mean, anything that you need to have a story, any communications you need to do, it's out on the website. And they're also on Facebook, Twitter. I'm not one of those on any of that. So I do like to make sure other people know that that's another resource that you can go out and participate or find any information on Episcopal Relief and Development.
That's great. It's a nice thought also when you talk about Christian Ed. I'm thinking in terms of our J2A. I don't know if that, would be something that could be part of the program and get them more specific information about that. And certainly our adult ed too would be a really great idea.
It's great to have the youth involved and the younger ones. There are tools out on the webpage for that, for younger kids too.
Great. Super.
Juanita, what is the source of funding for the organization? Where do the monies come from?
People like us. It comes from Episcopalians, and now they're involved in foundation donations for specific programs. And now after they became a 501c3, previously they were not a 501c3 before 2000. So a lot of that they do in conjunction with getting funding. They have gotten some funding a few years back from the government for the Nets for Life program, but the Gates Foundations have joined in with Episcopal Relief. The focus has changed a little bit to use other entities to help meet the needs worldwide, but not necessarily in the United States. So most of the funding they have, people who have contributed from years and years and years leave legacy estate in their estates. They leave money for Episcopal Relief and Development. Hopefully that's helpful. But specifically,
yes, thank you.
Okay. Anthony, you got to do that little bit of research. So when I asked you all those questions about Episcopal Relief and Development, you'll be able to answer. I can say that to you because you're a new Episcopalian.
Great.
Estes.
Got it. Yeah.
That's your homework.
I got you.
But I don't want to tie up your meetings. I know how important time is. I know that. So if anything else you need,
any other questions? And you've given us a lot of good information. Thank you so much. And
I'm glad to do that. And I can come back anytime you want me. Just let me know. And I thank you all for inviting me. And it's good to see you, Emily.
It's great to see you. I'm honored you could come tonight. Thank you so much, Juanita.
More than happy to do it. Thank you for inviting me. And
thank you very much.
You're welcome. Everybody enjoy your evening.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
I thought I might just start by just kind of talking real briefly about why we think it's important to invest in Egypt. As many of you know, Egypt is by far the largest and most populous nation in the whole region in the Middle East and North Africa. It has over 100 million people. And a real challenge is that those people can only live on the 4% of the land that runs right along the Nile River and then up into the Delta. So they're all jam-packed into this little tiny strip of land right along the Nile River. And if you ever come to Egypt with us, which we can talk about later on one of our insight trips that we do for congregations, you'll see that if we take a boat ride together on the Nile. Once you're down in the south, you're on this little, you're on the Nile and there's a little bit of land on either side and then the rest of it is desert. So it's just all the problems of any developing country are crammed together with all these people on this little tiny strip of land in the middle of the desert. And Egypt does face a lot of significant challenges. 50% of the population is under the age of 24. And then when you think about people who are sort of in their teens and 20s, between 15 and 29, 2/3 of those people are neither in school nor employed. So it's a huge number of unemployed young people in this really difficult situation. And you can just imagine the stresses and all that are building up there and what some of that can lead to. We also do a lot of work, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, with women. And in Egypt, only 23% of women ever find a job during their lifetime. So you just think of that amazing untapped potential that's there. And as people are really struggling with poverty, most of the women are not joining in the labor force and able to help support their families. We also work a lot with people with disabilities. 10% of Egypt's population has a disability of some sort, but 90% of those people are unemployed. So you'll kind of see a theme here that, that unemployment is a huge challenge there. And we'll talk in a few minutes about what you all are doing to help remedy that situation. I think I should also point out that Egypt is really seen as a leader in the Middle East and North Africa. It has always been the country that is sort of leading the region. So politically, in terms of peace treaties and negotiations and all, Egypt is always at the forefront. In the Middle East, they speak all these different dialects of Arabic, but everybody can understand Egyptian Arabic because Egypt traditionally produced all of the movies and the just the media that was consumed all around the region. So it's really a place that we think is important to invest in because it helps to stabilize the region as much as possible. And if we lose that stability in Egypt, things can get even worse in the other countries around there. So we really think it's important to kind of keep investing there. And I should also point out that about 10% of Egypt's population is Christian. And while we purposely don't serve just Christians, we serve everybody in the community, we tend to work through Christian and primarily Protestant organizations there so that we're really allowing them to serve the rest of the population. And we think that that's important. When you look at Iraq and Syria and all these countries that Christians are fleeing from, we're really trying to help preserve the Christian presence in Egypt, which has been there since the time of the Apostle Mark, and try to support them in any way that we can and empower them to serve their country and to help sort of build up their own presence there in the region. So I'd like to talk a little bit, if I could, about what you all have been making possible there. So from what I said a few minutes ago, you can tell that that employment is a huge challenge. So one thing that we've been focusing on, and especially since the Egyptian Revolution of 2013, when we heard all of the youth out in the streets in Tahrir Square, and they were shouting for bread, justice, and what was it? Bread, justice, and freedom, I think were the things. And so we've really, we don't deal with politics, so we're leaving the justice and freedom, for other people to work on. But we have been focusing a lot on the idea of bread and giving people a way to make a living. So you all have been supporting a lot of work with vocational training, with entrepreneurship mentoring, and also with microloans. We're really trying to come alongside people and provide, just a little amount. It's often $125, $250, $75 for someone to either get some training, like in plumbing or sewing, something like that. And I will say that people who go through some of the vocational training programs that we support, 80% of them find a job within the first year. And then for our microloan recipients, it's kind of the same thing. These are these small amounts of money that they ask for. And they have some of our local partners on the ground there who really walk with them through the process of creating a business plan, applying for the funding, and then really they try to help them succeed. They check back in with them every few weeks and find out how their business is going and give them tips and see if they need to change the loan, modify it in any way. And we have a 99.9% repayment rate for these loans that we give out to people. And it's amazing how just a little bit can really change a person's life. I was hoping, if you don't mind, can I just share, it's a less than a 2-minute video of one of the recipients that I have.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Thanks. Calibra, could you make Jennifer a co-host? Thanks. Perfect.
Okay, so I do share screen, and then let me get us on the right screen here. Okay, do you see something that says carpet manufacturing project?
Not yet.
Not yet. Do you see it now?
It's coming, I think.
Yes.
Yes, it just appeared on my screen.
Okay. All right, so hopefully this will work. Let's see how this goes here. Can you hear it? Can you hear? No?
Did you click the button that says optimize sound or share sound before you started screen sharing?
No, let me do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say exit the screen share and then initiate it again, and it'll be like a little box that comes up. Look at the bottom of the box.
Okay. Okay, let me stop share. All right, so I'm going to do share screen.
And you see at the bottom it says optimize for sound.
Oh, optimize for video clip or
Yeah,
and share
both
sound.
of them. Both
Do
of them. Yeah.
those. Got it. Okay. All right, can you see it there?
اسمي هانم فرج بيومي داوود فايد. كنت بشتغل سجاد زمان وانا صغيره، فالحمد لله ربنا كرمني وخدت الكارد واشتريت النول ده وبدأ بتاعي الوقت، والحاجات اللي عليه دي بتاعتي والحاجات دي كلها موجوده بتاعتي. فالوقت ان انا بعمل السجاده ديت وببيعها، والحمد لله الدنيا ماشيه مش زي الاول خالص. احنا كنا بنشتغل في الاسبوع ب 200 جنيه، بس الوقت هي السجاده بتاعتي ببيعها، ممكن ابيعها ب 7000 ب 5000 ب 6000. وبنتي برضه بتشتغل وعيالي بيشتغلوا معايا وبيساعدوني وكده. ولادي مبسوطين ان انا شغاله في البيت، بالنسبه لي وانا قاعده في وسطيهم يعني الحمد لله مبسوطين ان انا قاعده في وسطيهم، مش انا سايباهم وهم بيبقى متبهدلين وكده. انا كنت الاول بشتغل يعني بفلوس قليله جدا، ما كنتش بتعمل حاجه. فلما خدت الكارد وعملت الشغل في البيت وعملت السجاد والوقت الحمد لله، فالمصاريف زادت عن الاول. الاثنين الصغيرين اللي هم بيروحوا المدرسه ان انا اساعدهم ان هم يروحوا ويكملوا تعليمهم. الكارد فرق في حياتي، ان انا كنت هفضل طول عمري اشتغل كده بره وسايبه بيتي وسايبه اولادي، ومش هقدر اعمل لهم اللي انا عملته مع الكارد. الحمد لله الوقت كل اللي انا نفسي فيه بجيبه، واللي عيالي نفسهم فيه بيجيبوه. الكارد ده عمل معايا بصراحه معجزه يعني.
Could you hear that okay?
Yeah, that was very nice.
Okay.
Very
So I think that just sort of gives you a sense of the type of people who you all are empowering there in Egypt, and oops, sorry, YouTube is still on there. So these the projects that you're supporting don't just empower that one entrepreneur, but they really impact their whole family, because so often parents are pulling their children out of school to kind of work in some menial job to help support the family. But if the parent has a business that they can run and to support the kids, and the kids can stay in school, and that breaks this sort of cyclical cycle of poverty that just keeps repeating generation after generation. And as you can see, it doesn't take a lot, depending on the kind of business someone wants to start, whether they're raising chickens or weaving carpets, or they have a little barber shop or a little grocery store. It's a pretty small investment. And often these entrepreneurs come back to us for a little bit bigger loan and a little bit bigger loan, and it keeps growing. So that's just one of the types of projects that you all have been making possible. We also support some healthcare projects, like I mentioned earlier, this hospital that Bill Peck went to. And then we also focus on building the capacity of Egyptian organizations and individuals to really impact their community. So we do a lot of training. We've had groups of fellows focused on women's rights and rights for people with disabilities that we've brought to the States for training in the past. This last week, we had a conference for companies all across the Middle East and North Africa focused on how they could hire and then promote more women, and how that would affect them and their bottom line if they were able to incorporate more women into the job market. So those are the type of projects that you all are supporting. And we're so grateful to have you on our team. It's nice to finally connect with you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all might have, but I do just want to maybe offer, in case we run out of time, a couple of ways that you all could also consider engaging further with hands, in addition to your very generous financial support that you've been offering. I don't know if you all do sometimes Advent sales, or if there's any room for this in your programming, but we do have handicrafts that are made from recycled scraps of paper, garbage, men's tie, I shouldn't say garbage. It's stuff that's donated, but paper, fabric, men's ties, the caps off of soda cans, all kinds of wonderful things that are made by women there, and they're recycled into these beautiful crafts. I can tell you the whole story another time. It's made in the garbage collectors community. They're this amazing community in Egypt. And this is a way that we support this women's vocational training program. So we bring the crafts here to the States and we make them available for churches that want to sell them, you know, whether it's an Advent sale or some other time in the year. So we'd be happy to send you some of those. We also run insight trips, or what some churches call mission trips, that we would craft to the interests of your congregation to Egypt. You could visit the projects that you've been supporting, and then of course also see the different, you know, the pharaonic temples and the old mosques and old churches. We can really kind of craft it to your interests. And then finally, I should just say, if anyone there, any of your family members is interested in learning Arabic, we also offer online one-on-one Arabic classes where you're paired with a teacher there in Egypt. I know a lot of kids now are wanting to learn Arabic and to use it in the future. So if you have any students in the congregation that want to get a head start in Arabic, either high school students, college students, or professionals who want to use it in their jobs, we're happy to set that up. And it's providing a job for a teacher. It's providing, you know, an American a chance to really engage with Middle Eastern culture and learn the language. And then it also helps to support our projects in villages there. So I'd love to take any questions that you all might have.
I just want to say this, it's really wonderful to learn all of the things that you guys are doing. And I happen to have a daughter who is very much into languages and has always wanted to study Arabic. So I've taken away an important piece of information tonight, Perfect. If nothing else. So she will be pretty thrilled.
Great, that's great. I'll see if I can find our, I'll put the link here in the chat for where you can sign up for our Arabic here.
People, anybody have questions, comments? Francis, it was kind of fun watching you listening to the video, and I assume you weren't reading any subtitles.
أنا فهمت العربي تماما.
بجد؟ حضرتك كنتي عايشة في مصر؟
لا بلبنان.
في لبنان, wow. What were you doing in Lebanon?
بجنوب لبنان كنت معلمة بمدرسة تكميلية.
Oh, wow. That's great. That's great. All right, I'm going to.
Of course, none of the rest of us speak any Arabic, so we don't really know what she just told you, but it sounded wonderful.
I'm putting the link in the chat there for the Arabic classes.
Yeah, I always laughed when I heard Egyptians speak because it sounded like the movie was talking.
Yes, yes.
I mean, they just, the dialect is just so, it's
It
the
is.
movie.
It is. It's very different.
Anyone
Are you
else have
all-
some questions?
Are you all engaged with a lot of other international projects, or do you do more local ones for the most part?
Mostly local.
Mhm. That's great.
It ebbs and flows, doesn't it? Sometimes there's more of an international emphasis, and sometimes it's more local. Definitely a strong local commitment. And our international outreach for us is very relational. Like knowing you and the PECs, of course. It makes it a priority. Josephine, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I wanted to ask if on the website, excuse me, I'm sorry, there's information about the crafts, and are they like available through the website, or would it only be when you had an opportunity to ask to have craft materials sent to the parish as a whole?
So we did for a while sell some through Etsy, and kind of just, on an individual basis, people could buy things. Since COVID started, we just haven't been able to do that because we're all working from home and just navigating, like getting to the office, getting the crafts, figuring out the packaging just hasn't worked. So we aren't really doing the individual sales. But yes, for any churches that want it, we go in and just pack things up and send them a box of crafts. Yep. If we have a minute, can I tell you the story of this community where they're made? It's a really neat community.
Please.
So the garbage collectors in Cairo recycle 80% of the city's garbage that they collect, 80%. We average more like 30% recycling here in the US. But these people they really are amazing. So early in the morning, the men and the boys go out in these donkey carts and they fan out across the city, and they have these routes that they have sort of bargained for, negotiated for, that belong to them. And they go to your neighborhood and they stop at the foot of your building, and often the son will run upstairs to everybody's door and grab the day's garbage that's been put out by the door, and he brings it downstairs and throws it back in the back of the donkey cart. He usually the kids ride in the back of the cart with the garbage, and the father's up on front driving the donkey. So all morning long, they go around the city and they pick up all this garbage. And then in the sort of the early afternoon, they head back up this hill where they live with their families. They bring the donkey cart to the door of their home, sort of the ground floor, kind of like their living room, back the donkey cart up and just dump the garbage on the floor. And then the women and the girls get to work, and they squat down in the trash and they sort everything out, everything that's been collected. The food scraps go to the pigs that they raise. They're a predominantly Christian community, so they're allowed to raise some pigs. Food scraps go to the pigs. The metal all gets put together, and that gets sold to some family who recycle metal. The plastic gets put together, and that gets sold to some family that recycles plastic. The paper, same thing. So it's amazing, what they're able to do with the trash that they collect. But can you imagine what it's like living in this house with all these bags of trash everywhere? It's very unhygienic. And the kids are pulled out of school to work with their families in these businesses of collecting and then also recycling the trash. So we've supported several different projects in this community. And one of the ones that I've been mentioning is this program that teaches women a trade. So they come and they either learn how to do weaving or quilting or paper recycling. There are a few new ones now that we've started recently. And they take, like, say, 4 to 6 month course just learning how to use these scraps that come in, that they build on the same recycling principle. And we get factories to donate their leftover paper or leftover fabric, or leftover the caps off of like soda cans, or what else? There are a few other things, beer cans they've been using for some crafts. And then the women make these beautiful products out of these. So these gorgeous woven rugs, I mean, sort of, you know, simple rag rugs, but really bright and beautiful with fun designs, quilts for bedrooms, purses out of the soda can tabs, just all kinds of really fun jewelry out of these little single serve, you know, the coffee pods that you use. They don't have Keurig in Egypt. They use Nespresso, I think it's called. And they're these really bright, beautiful jewel toned things. So they flatten them and then they make like these necklaces and earrings and all out of the jewelry or out of the coffee pods. So it's really wonderful. The women, you know, once they finish their training, they can go home. They can have a loom set up at home if they're weavers, or they can work from home, make crafts, bring them in, and they just sell them back to the school. And then we bring them here and sell them for them. And then the women also can learn Arabic while they're there. They're taught, you know, I mean, they can speak, of course, but they learn how to read and write. Some of them learn a little bit of English. They have healthcare for their kids. They have a nursery school for their kids. So it's just a really wonderful little oasis in a really, really tough neighborhood. But anyway, so that's the story of our crafts, and we'd be happy to, you know, to make those available if you're interested.
That's just fascinating. What incredible work. What incredible work in so many different ways the organization's doing. And I have to admit that, you know, we've talked about you over the years and Bill has been such a supporter, but I hadn't heard all of these details before. So it's very, very helpful. Anybody have any more questions or clarifications they might want to ask Jennifer? Comments? I see a sale in our future. When Josephine says ask an important question like that, we know something that's going to happen. So, right, Josephine?
Great.
And Jennifer, thank you for your correspondence too. I received your most recent note.
Oh,
and,
good.
Yeah, and the reports that you sent along with it.
Okay, great.
We haven't been meeting in person, so as soon as we can, which hopefully is very soon, we'll be able to share the materials around
Okay.
to one another. So thank you for your very thoughtful personal note.
Yeah, great, absolutely. Thank you all so much for being part of our team, and I hope we get to meet in person someday, and I hope we get to take you all to Egypt someday after we can all travel again, and we'd love to take you down the Nile and show you things we've all read about for years and years in history, but also some of the people whose lives you are helping to make better from all the way in Detroit. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Jennifer.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Yeah.
You all be well. I'll sign off and leave you, and yeah, have a good rest of your meeting.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Bye-bye, you all. Emily, nice to see you again.
You too.
Bye.